Hey everybody, sorry for the slight delay there. Uh, I can't seem to find Zane, our director. He's AWOL. That's okay. It's his birthday. I didn't know. I just told him yesterday we were doing a show this week, and then today I see it's his birthday on Facebook. So hopefully he's off doing something fun. The time is wasting. We have to go. In fact, I can see right now we have 0 viewers watching the show. You take 2 weeks off, your whole audience disappears. That's all right. We're started now. I'm going to jump over on the Facebook side real quick and see if anyone is like, hey, where is everybody? But in the meantime, happy to see you all. I did take 2 weeks off. I needed, I guess you would call it a little me time. We're transitioning. My wife's going back to work, and baby's going to daycare, so I can get meaningful work done at home and all that fun stuff. So we're cool on that. I'm very excited about it. Let's see. Was anybody having trouble with logging on to the show? I will post and tell people that the show has started. For everyone who's listening to the audio-only version, sorry. I know it's a little weird. All right. Nope, doesn't look it. I guess. Oh, look, we do have a viewer. Yay, it's working. I can tell now. Super duper. So, now that we've done all the technical hoo-wah and all that stuff, let's do the little intro to the show. This is the 23rd episode of the Cult of Copy Show. I'm your host, the Reverend Dr. Sir Colin D. Terrio, leader and founder of the Cult of Copy, a discussion group for professional marketers and persuasion engineers of all types. We have over 10,000 members from all countries all over the world. I'm exaggerating. It's like 90 countries. I don't even know how many there are. But we got a ton of people in the group. We like to talk about weird stuff like persuasion and marketing and manipulation and all of that good stuff in that discussion group, which you can get to if you use the URL under my name here, if you're watching on the screen, cultofcopy.com. That will currently take you to the membership request page on Facebook. But this show is an outgrowth of that, and we meet sort of weekly, supposed to be weekly, to discuss these topics, which I mentioned. If you like that kind of thing, if you watch today's episode and you like what we talk about, you can find our YouTube channel, youtube.com/cultofcopy, where, like I said, we have 24 episodes, including this one, because we did an episode 0. So if you like what we do, check out those old episodes, subscribe to the channel, keep an eye out. We're going to be an audio-only podcast. That's some mysterious future date when I finally get around to doing it. But for now, we're a YouTube show, and we're happy to have you. I see more people filtering in. If you came and it looked like we weren't doing the show, sorry. Technical difficulties. We're on our way now. Let's see. Also, if you like the show, we, like I said, we try to do it weekly. I've slacked a couple of weeks, but I'm going to try and get back on schedule. Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern is when we always shoot for recording new episodes. So if you want to join us live, we keep an eye on the comments. I'm by myself today. Zane is off celebrating his birthday, I would imagine. So I'm only going to keep an eye on the YouTube comments. If I miss any, I'll respond to them inside the Cult of Copy. But happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them under the YouTube player there, and I will get to them when I can. As mentioned in the show notes, when I announced that we were doing this episode, we're going to talk today about some marketing methods that I picked up from an article about a disgraced mega church that's under investigation. As you know, being the Cult of Copy, we kind of look at what people might consider the dark side of persuasion, kind of taboo subjects that maybe people aren't too comfortable talking about. So anyway, I'm going to fill you in on this church. And again, I'm a reverend, a doctor, and a knight, sort of. Those are phony titles, but The point is, I'm not a reporter, so if I got any of the factual information in this part, where I'm just sort of trying to give you the background of today's content, forgive me. I looked it up as best I could on the amount of time I was willing to give it relevant to the content of today's show. But if you want to learn more about it, please do look it up on your own to verify anything that I said, because I could be wrong about the very, very specific details, but in general, I think I got a pretty good gist of it. So there's this guy, his name is Kong Hee, and he founded this megachurch evangelical movement in Singapore called the CHC. And I don't remember what those letters stand for specifically, so I apologize. But last year or the year before, it's in progress, is my understanding, he was indicted for smuggling in the area, embezzling in the area of like $50 million out of this church illegally to fund and finance his wife's pop star career, because he's married to a pop singer. And it's a very huge church. There's a lot of people involved, and there are a bunch of these watchdog websites that are kind of like run an analysis on it, looking at how they were involved, how they were duped, how did they get all of this money for this guy to embezzle in the first place. A lot of interesting stuff. It was Johann Mock shared this link on his timeline and pointed out the specific part of this article. And the website we got it from is chcchurchwatch.org. And on that site is like, I mean, when I say gigantic, it's like Ken Burns documentary level gigantic analysis of the scandal involving the finances of this particular church. In all of that, and I think it's part 6, and a very small part of that expose, the writer goes into detail about some of the mechanisms that were used to generate the money in the first place for this guy to embezzle out of his church and spend illegally, furthering his wife's pop singer career. That part I found to be very interesting and very useful, because some of it is like directly parallel to very common information marketing industry practices, things that you might hear a number of people teach and advocate, and all of them come around and say, you know, that's a good thing to do, you should do that. But it's explained here and demonstrated in a way that has nothing to do with what most people think of when they think of an information marketing business. And also what I like about it is it was interesting to see someone who is not an info marketing business industry person try to explain these concepts in different terms to people who might have even less understanding of these processes and how they work. So it's a very interesting phrasing of it. I'm going to update the description of the YouTube video to include the link directly to that article after the show is over. But for now, what we're going to talk about is how interesting this is. This like a mega church, if you're not familiar, this is when like it's just very ostentatious. It's not like what you think of if you might think of an old school European style Christian church. They're very modern. They try to incorporate themselves into pop culture. They build massive, massive complexes. They bring in millions of dollars in donations. Really sort of at odds with what a lot of people think of when they think of religion, not to judge anybody's particular faith. This dude ended up getting, put under indictment. Him and like 18 other people have been arrested for investigation into like crazy stuff, like using shell companies, and we'll talk about some of their business practices and how you can do it in a more ethical way. But yeah, like this is not like a dude who like dipped his hand in the petty cash drawer now and then and got caught. This is like built the organization for secretly funneling tons of church funds into his private ventures, which is pretty devious considering the way that he structured the church in the first place. It seems like a lot of these were just legit uses of his church audience to kickstart, I guess you would call it, some of his financial ventures. that had nothing to do with the church. The big interesting tidbit of this is sort of the way he put it all together. And what it is like, he had his big mega church, and there are a bunch of smaller affiliated churches all over the country, and I imagine in different countries. Like I said, it started in Singapore, from what I understand, and they had this mission that they like you can go to their website now, because they're still allowed to operate while the investigation is ongoing. Like slick brochures and posters and publicity for this thing they called the Crossover Project. And what this was meant to be was like, we want to get the youth involved in religion again, so we're going to like try and mash it up and cross over with pop culture through music and fashion and things the kids are into, merchandising, marketing. We're going to do like a young, cool, hip thing to make our mega church look like a cool thing for people to get involved in. It just so happens the guy who runs the church, his wife is a pop star. Quelle coincidence. But yeah, so we'll talk about why and how he sort of worked that personal aspiration of his into what the church was about, and what a cool, sneaky idea that was, and how we can do it ethically. Like I said, what we're going to talk about specifically, I have 6 points we're going to break down in detail. I named them something different to make them more appropriate to what we do as marketers. But the author of the original article, like I said, I'll give you the link in the description section under the YouTube video here, directly to it. But it was published on churchwatch.org. I'll double check that URL right now. I'll read you the whole thing right on video for the people who are like only audio inclined. Let's see. It's at churchwatch.com. Sorry, not .org. Pardon. churchwatch.com/2014/08/n-insightful- you guys got terrible URLs, but that's my fault for not being prepared. Anyways, part 6 of the article, an insightful analysis to the CHC system. And like way, it's a giant article, and it's part 6 of this huge series. But way down there, if you scroll to where there's like an image of a bunch of people throwing money in there, great stock art choice. That's the part where these 6 points come from that I've sort of like re-described in terms that cult members may recognize, or marketing people at least will have a better grasp of. And again, what was interesting about these is this is a guy who was, I presume, a member of this church, looking at the church with an objective eye, not as a business person, but sort of analyzing how they put together this machine that generated so much money that they could build this mega church and run it as a mega church, and then still have like 50 million left over to like just siphon off and throw at his wife's pop star career. So let's dive into those. We are about, we started late. It's going to be a short show because, I don't know, maybe you're leaving comments. We'll check those all at the end. Like I said, Zane's not here. So for comments, I'm going to read the YouTube comments at the end of the show, and we'll handle it that way. Looking at these 6 points, right? The number one that most info marketers that I know are going to find very familiar is the church, his business, his organization. He wrote like lots of books, made lots of courses, a lot of audio, multimedia type stuff, typical info marketing products, right? He had a publishing company that published these things, and he would sell them. But what he would also do is encourage all the member churches to buy his stuff to train their people. And the material itself would encourage the people using it as training to buy their own copy. And of course, the churches were encouraged to sell copies to their members in order to grow the organization, right? So like, hey, member church, why don't you buy a box of these books, and then you have the stock, and then you can resell them to all your members, right? It's kind of eerily like an MLM in that way. But this is the equivalent in the info marketing space of a technique. It's surprisingly, you don't see a lot of it anymore. I think it kind of fell out of favor, but it was really popular in the early days, before people really knew what affiliate marketing is. For those that don't know, there's lots of stuff being sold online where you can go sign up for an account, and they give you a special link to the things for sale. And if you promote that link in a number of ways that you're allowed to do, if people come through and purchase, you get credit for that. There's people who run full-time businesses doing only this, referring people to go buy things. And when people buy those things, the person who referred them gets paid. It's very common, like I said, in the online info marketing. Even like you can be an Amazon associate and do the same thing with physical products, but I digress. What this church was doing is doing this process of turn your customers into your affiliates. So part of the education included in the product is to teach you how to go get set up as a reseller of the product. In his case, it was like, buy some cases of our books and videos and whatnot, and you have them at home and you can resell them. The modern way you would do it online is there are tons of affiliate tracking systems. My friend EBR is one of the people involved with JVZoo, which is very popular. Give them a free plug. You guys are going to give me a poster at these conferences one day with my picture on it. I know, because I keep telling people about you. The JVZoo is one. There's another one called ClickBank. There's what's it called, Warrior Plus. And I think that one is specifically for the Warrior form. There's tons. There's even ones you can install on your own systems like Infusionsoft and all that. The idea being people can sign up under you. They get their own little ID, and it makes it automatic. They can say, I want to share this product with someone, and it'll give them a link that when they share that link, anyone who clicks on it and buys, they get credit and they get paid. So it handles all the tracking for you, very digitally in very highly detailed accounting fashion, which maybe this guy, since they were a church, that's why they were kind of doing it manually on the DL. They didn't actually want it to be very well tracked. Let's see. Zane just sent me a message. We're gonna. Oh, he said he had connection issues. We'll allow it. It's your birthday, dude. I know. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. I won't bust on you too hard. Maybe you want to just hop in. We're already doing the show. So you get your affiliate program going and you incorporate it into your products. You just throw an extra chapter or an extra video, a little bit of README file, or however you want to do it. You just incorporate it into your products. And you say, hey, by the way, I have an affiliate program for this. If you know anyone who would like this product that you bought from me, if you use this link to refer them, you do it for them, you sign them up automatically as part of their custom. You give them the URL, and then they can then share it. And then people who don't think of themselves as affiliate marketers can like forward it via email or whatever to their friends. And then you get more sales, essentially recruiting all of your customers as informal affiliates. And, is this going to equal the amount of traffic heat that a real professional affiliate can bring? No, of course not. But it's free sales just laying there for anyone who feels self-motivated to go ahead and do that. You pick up those extra sales. Now, if you want it to be extra devious, you make it part of whatever system you're teaching them how to do. Make it seem like not a vital step, because that's like just way too twisted, but additional steps at the end of this thing that I taught you, that you paid me to teach you in this video course or ebook or whatever. Go ahead and get set up as an affiliate for this. And these are some ideas where you can share this link, and maybe you'll earn enough commissions and sales from selling this item so that your purchase of it ends up being free. And hey, maybe you'll even make extra money doing it. It's a very interesting idea, and I'd never seen it applied to a church per se, even though most church and cult recruiting mechanisms are like multi-level marketing. This one was actually connected to products. And I thought that was neat, because he had his publishing company that was connected to his church. So like when he said, hey, go, like, I published this new book, go buy a bunch of copies, you were buying it from his publishing company. It wasn't like he bought a bunch of them and had them in his garage. They were printing them on demand to fulfill the orders of his church members, right? So that's pretty sneaky. I like that a lot. I think that is a good idea that should come back into favor, especially if you're Like, I'm sort of into teaching marketing to marketers, so a lot of people already know what affiliate programs are. It's not really going to be a big game changer for me because a lot of the people who read my stuff are probably already doing affiliate marketing on the side. But if you're in a niche that has nothing to do with marketing, people have never heard of that. You sell skateboards, sell snowshoes, you sell, who knows what else that you could possibly sell and get that working. Oh, look, there's Zane. Hey, Zane, what's up? I think I think I would have to put the director on you. All right. Hi, Zane. Um, so there's that. That's turning your customers into affiliates, and then of course, if you want to expand that even further, say you have these customers come on and make themselves into affiliates, right? And you you turn them into affiliates, say they're more successful than just selling a copy or two, and they seem to like have some sort of mechanism for making you repeat sales. Well, then you could create more material to help them with that and have them buy that from you. So you turn your customers into affiliates and then those affiliates into repeat customers and so on. And you build a big cycle and a big chain and a big tree. It's not a pyramid exactly, but uh, it's a very good idea for a way to further the selling of your products by understanding this cycle, this chain, this way you can get people to voluntarily decide they want to maybe sell your products themselves on the side and then sell them material on how to get better at that. It's like a little side business connected to the main business. It's pretty cool, right? Extra money just laying there. That's nice. The second thing that this church did was a kind of patronage, and I've talked in the Cult of Copy newsletter before about this concept of patronage. The idea is it's a little blatant when you're a business, but we'll talk about ways in which it could be presented and still be okay. But this idea with patronage is basically, as a church leader, he could say, hey, very rich, faithful member of this church, we're having some cash flow problems. Would you like to give us a love gift, which is just a straight up donation of a whole bunch of cash, to support our endeavors? It's not really a thing we're going to put out to everybody, but between me and you, you're like super tight with the mission, right? You're giving us your money directly, and we really appreciate your patronage because you care about our mission, and we're definitely going to use it to advance that mission, which coincidentally is increasing my wife's pop star career. Except it didn't. That's what's the funniest part about it. She doesn't have that big of a career. Anyways, so they were able to do this like crazy love gift donation thing, which I'm not an IRS expert. I don't know the implications of getting people to do that kind of thing, but I have definitely, you've seen me do things like, oh, I broke my skateboard and I want to have a sale, so you can like buy me this new skateboard. Those kind of things are very similar, where I'm sort of getting you to support things that I want to do that maybe don't necessarily have to do directly with my business. The things you buy have to do with my business, but this idea of patronage, another way you can do it, especially if you're positioned as an expert info marketer type person online, where the products you sell are teaching people how to do the things that you're an expert in. Consider doing consulting and mentoring retainers, where people pay you a bunch of money upfront for X number of months. Consulting, you could break it down by like hourly time on the phone to talk to them about whatever it is that you're supposed to be helping them with, that they paid you for. I mentioned that I sell a newsletter. The newsletter itself is a way that I invented that I can run my business by way of patronage, because basically, instead of making a thing, I invest into making that thing and hope that people will buy it. I create ways for people to sort of pay me in an ongoing way for work that I'm going to do for them, if that makes sense. Like, they're prepaying me for stuff. They're like, you keep being awesome, and I'm going to invest in that awesome occurring at some point in the future. Now, it may seem weird, like you can't run a business like that, like completely where you're like, hey, pay me if you want a thing and then I'll go make it. That seems weird in a lot of ways, but Kickstarter, Indiegogo, lots of things like that are being used in that exact way where they're like, I have this cool idea for a thing, doesn't exist at all yet, but if you believe in it, you give me a bunch of money on faith that I'm going to go ahead and use that money to actually produce the thing that you gave it to me for. But what it feels like is like you're pre-buying, but that's not really what you're doing if you read the fine print. And if you've ever invested in a Kickstarter that paid out but did not deliver, because they're under no obligation to deliver and you can't do anything about it. That's your risk for playing investor, but you're not really an investor because an investor has rights. You don't have any rights when you give money to a Kickstarter that doesn't pay off. But that's working on the same model. It really is. It's like a love gift. I'm totally on faith. Give us, a bunch of you. I'll just like tickle your nostalgia about a certain kind of video game that you wish they still made. You give us like millions of dollars and we're going to like miss all of our debt. I'm being bitter. You can tell I've done this before. You give us cumulatively millions of dollars and we'll miss deadline after deadline while we use some of the money you gave us to launch our second game that doesn't exist yet instead of finishing the first game that you actually paid us for. Yeah, okay, you're right. I can let that go. I don't have to be super bitter about that. That's just another example of how this patronage model can actually work with legit businesses. People are getting more and more used to that concept, and I think you'll actually see more private style Kickstarter-esque things that businesses are going to do directly with their audiences instead of doing it through a site like Kickstarter to get the publicity. These are going to be people that have developed enough audiences to kick off these kind of things entirely on their own. And in a way, I sort of do that with the way I launch some of my products, because I'll say, hey, I have this thing that I know how to do, and I want to teach you how to do it. We'll do a webinar or something. You buy a ticket to that webinar, and then I'll show up in a week or 2 weeks when everyone's ready, and we'll all get together, and I'll teach it to you live, and you get the recording. That is, again, kind of a patronage type deal, because I'm getting you to pay me for something that doesn't exist yet, and you're like, yeah, we support your work. Here's some money, and trust in me to do. I do actually show up and deliver it, but similar concept. So think about that in your business. How can you use this idea of patronage where you reframe what you're doing for your hardcore, high dollar, very loyal, very engaged audience? How can you take that and turn it into a patronage kind of scenario where they're not just like buying things you make if they want them, they're investing, actively investing preemptively in you continuing to do the work that you do. The next one is interesting because I've talked about it in the context of a dude named Edward Bernays. Now the deal with Bernays, if you're not familiar with him, I suggest you look him up. There's also, I think on YouTube you can find the 4-hour documentary called Century of Self. It was a BBC documentary. You can watch that. It's all about him. He was Sigmund Freud's American nephew, and he was one of the first dudes to sort of integrate psychology and marketing. He was a propagandist in World War I. Oh, look, I got a chat message. I wonder if it's from Zane. Zane says he watched the hell out of that. Hey, Zane, what's up, dude?
Yeah. I just hate Comcast more than anything in the world right now.
It's all good, dude. I figured you were doing tequila shots since it's your birthday. Happy birthday. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. No, see, that was before, and then I was like, oh, no connection. So I was drunkenly stumbling around and fixing
Right.
So, yeah.
No, it's all good. You taught me how to do it on my own, and just this case happened, so it's all good, man.
I couldn't be more proud of you. Please continue.
Nice. So Edward Bernays, he was a propagandist for America against Germany in World War I. And he liked it so much and saw how powerful it was that when he came back to America after the war, he wanted to do that same process for businesses. But the problem he had was that propaganda by then was already being used by the enemy under that word. So that word had a negative connotation. So he couldn't call it like business propaganda. So he invented the term public relations, specifically to relabel propaganda for business, so he could found basically the whole concept of Madison Avenue style mass marketing, branding, emotional appeal, kind of all comes from him. The modern era of that, um, doing things like inventing the character of Betty Crocker to sell cakes, um, attaching women's brand cigarettes to the women's suffrage movement to sell them cigarettes by connecting them to torches of liberty. He did devious shit like that. Anyway, the reason I bring him up is because what he said once is that if you want people to do something, and I'm paraphrasing, if you want someone to do something, harness that activity to their sense of self, to their identity. Now, what this Hong Ki guy did in his church and his mega church is he had this idea of like, I want this like famous, awesome Asian version of Madonna wife, and I'm going to use all this church money to boost her career because I'm like, we have mad cash flow and I'm super rich. I should be able to do this if I want. So what he did is, like we said, I mentioned he had this thing he called the crossover project that was like advertising this concept, this mission, this branding idea to all of his little sub churches that this is what we're going to do. We're going to get these musical acts together. We're going to promote these concerts. We're going to have rallies at the concerts to convert people and get them to get baptized or be saved or whatever mechanism it is that his particular splinter group uses to identify you as a member. And just sort of synergy is what multimedia companies call that. But he basically took his desire to further his wife's pop star career, because it's what she wanted. He wanted to make her happy, whatever their deal was. And he harnessed his entire audience to that goal by making it their mutual goal altogether. They didn't necessarily get behind the idea of like we want to make his wife a pop star. But this idea that like we're going to grow the church, we're going to get the youth back involved, we're going to change the world, is going to be magical. Here's how we're going to do it. In part, we're going to make my wife a pop star with all the money you give us. And like it worked. Huge amounts of churches threw all kind of money his way for this mission. But the trick was, and the article even points this out, and I really like that they pointed out, because even though this is some real shady stuff this group was up to, they gave the benefit of that mission to these member churches that were providing the money in order to create positive feedback loop. So when you would give them a bunch of money and they would throw on this concert, like they would throw a bunch of members your way. Like it really was doing the stuff they made up to support the real underlying personal goal that he wanted. But he put it in such a way that everyone got value for their contribution. They got something out of it too, even though it was fulfilling his ulterior goal. And that's a very, very clever way of doing things. And you see a lot of solopreneur quotey fingers on that one. That's a made-up word, but I like portmanteaus, so I'm cool with it. These solopreneurs that have this like lifestyle business, oh, I'm working from the beach and stuff like that, they do a very similar thing where basically their audience is motivated and lining up behind the idea of continuing to support that lifestyle, specifically because that vicarious connection to that lifestyle is part of the products that they continue to buy. So it's almost like you fund my awesome lifestyle and I promise to keep making it awesome, and that's our arrangement. Or what's that guy that throws chicks off his roof into pools? Bilzerian, Dan Bilzerian. My understanding is he was born rich.
Wait, he does what?
Well, he was born rich and he's like a poker player, but he's always like rocking his Instagram and Twitter and stuff with like him with hot chicks and porn actresses and bikini models. Oh. And he did something where like he's on the roof of his mansion and as a stunt threw some girl off the roof into the pool, but like she kicked off weird You can see it in the video. He didn't mess up. She kind of like squirmed, which you don't want to do when someone's throwing you off the roof in a drunken improvised stunt. But she ended up like horribly breaking her foot. She made it in the pool, but just not 100%. So it's just one of those things where like that is another guy who just made like his dream, living that life. You're subsidizing it because you watch his life so much. You click on his links and buy the things that he says are cool. And that's enough for him to live the lifestyle he lives, in addition to being a professional gambler. And also, I believe his parents are rich. He did a joke the other day I thought was funny, because could not be more different than the way my life is. But basically he said, hey, Dad, I bought this jet. And his dad's like, at your age, I had 3 of those jets. I have 0 jets. I don't even know if I want a jet necessarily. Like, I'm just not into that. But hopefully you get that.
Like, you think tabloids work the same way?
How's that?
Like tabloids, like work in a similar way?
Yeah, I think so, where it's like a lot of things that are meant to be like aspirational but don't actually do anything for you. So like luxury brands that are actually positioned to be affordable by non-luxury buyers. So like a Lexus is nice, but it's not a Rolls Royce. It's still a Toyota. It's a really nice Toyota, but it's not like a real luxury car, quotey fingers. That idea, that positioning of things, I think tapping into what people's idea of what their dream is and being able to buy at least a little piece of that and own it a little bit. That's not fully what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about when you have like a figurehead at the front of an organization and he's like, I got this vision for this amazing thing and I want it to happen and you guys are going to help by buying our stuff. So like the 1984 commercial for Apple where they launched the Mac and sort of like, are you like an awesome smart nerd and you think you're super creative and like better than everybody? Buy this, because we're going to like ride that wave and make it come true. That if you keep buying our products, you will have a reason to feel superior over everyone else. And it worked. But again, they actually delivered on it by harnessing what they wanted, which was to break through and become a super successful company. They harnessed that to people's sense of identity so that all their goals lined up and actually came true, if that makes sense. Next we have lateral networking, which what he would do, this preacher guy, if he wanted a bunch of extra money for like buying condos and cars and all kinds of crazy extravagant things, he would go into cahoots with like his fellow megachurch partners, not necessarily the people under him, but like people doing his same hustle at sort of his same level. And they would work out deals where you get your audience to give you a bunch of love gifts to pay my perfectly reasonable, though very high, speaking fees, and then bring me in and I'm going to come speak and I'm going to collect all that money from your group and then I'll reciprocate. And we'll do that in a circle with our whole gang. Does that sound like kind of launch fever? Basically, that happens in the info marketing space. It's like the exact same concept.
Yeah.
Or even just like in a more like, I don't want to present it like this is an evil thing necessarily. Even just like when you have an offer, you have a good webinar for it to teach it live and then sell on the back end, you go on the circuit of all the people you know that do good webinars for their audience, you swap one out, you reciprocate, you sell a bunch of stuff to their audience and get new customers, they sell a bunch of stuff to your audience and get new customers. It's a win-win, and it's pulling money, like you're pulling money out of my audience that I wasn't going to pull out. You know what I mean? I'm not losing anything because I didn't have that thing to sell them without your help. And if you wanted to do an affiliate split on that, that's usually a good idea too. So basically, by giving you the ability to come do your thing in front of my audience pulling money out of them that I can't get that out of them. I don't have a product to cover what yours does, but I get a split, and then we're going to reciprocate and do the same thing to your audience. It's generating new money because of this lateral networking that's mutually beneficial to everyone. I want to point out some of this stuff that the church guy did was only sneaky and evil because he was like, it's for a church. We want to help people. But then he would take the money and then like buy radio time and stuff for his wife's pop, go put her in the studio for 15 months with the studio magic machine, like from Josie and the Pussycats. That is what made it wrong. But like I pointed out, there are very legitimate ways that you can use this exact same process in an info marketing business where it's a win-win. You can be totally transparent. You're not tricking anybody, but you can find these arrangements. Now, like I said, in the info marketing industry, these, I guess you would call them like ecosystems, kind of already exist where these things are already happening. There's already like webinar swaps going on regularly. If you're in an industry, in a niche where that doesn't happen, all it means is you got to find somebody with an audience that would kind of dig going on like a webinar or something, and talk them into letting you do it, and then just splitting the money and saying, look, if nobody shows up, you're not out anything. I'm not asking for your recommendation. Just promote it, see if people, let people know what it's about, and if they want to give the time, check it out and let you know if it was lame or whatever. I promise it won't be lame. And if anybody buys anything, I'll split it with you. Talk them into it. Create these opportunities for that lateral networking, and then do the same thing for them with your audience if there's crossover. And if they're not familiar that that thing even exists, you now have a powerful ally because you've lined their pockets in a way that they never even thought was possible. If you, like I said, you're in the snowboarding niche, and you know a guy that sells like, I don't know shit about snowboarding, like some kind of wax. I don't know if that's surfboards only. Maybe you don't wax a snowboard. I have no idea. Some kind of product.
Snowboards.
There you go. See, Zane knows. He's all out there in Utah and shit where they got snow. It's not for me. Not for this Cajun. No. Snow is rain that's broken. The idea would be like you go find a dude who makes us wax and he loves to snowboard and he doesn't really know anything about business, but he's got an email list of like 200,000 snowboarders that love this wax and buy it over and over because you use it all up and then you run out. He doesn't know what he's doing. Talk him into letting you do a webinar for your snowboarding guide or whatever, and then reciprocate. Throw some ads for his stuff on your people. Powerful allies. And again, when you have this kind of network, it's like it can be bad if it creates like a very closed, good old boy, quote unquote, network that's like predatory to the market at large because you squeeze people out. But in general, on the internet, like, you don't own the internet. Even if you make a small like trade group where you're like, me and a few people work together and we scratch each other's back, it's not like you own the whole internet. So anyone could come along and compete with you. It's not like you own all those possible customers. So it's not like, like antitrust organizations where you're like, we own all the sources to get steel, and now we're just going to charge you more because you can't buy it anywhere else. It's not like that online. People can buy anything from wherever they want. But again, networking, lateral networking can be very powerful when you create these relationships with people that aren't under you. You're not an underling of them. You're sort of reaching sideways into related markets that have overlap and creating nice allies that you're treating as colleagues and equals, and doing something mutually beneficial not only for each other but for your mutual audiences. Oh, by the way, today's unofficial beer sponsor is Magic Hat number 9.
What kind of dark beer, light beer?
Oh, it is. They call it a not quite pale ale, and it's one of those where it's IPA-ish in that it's got like a little bit of a floral taste, but it's not like eating grass clippings. Like the current fad with new IPAs is like to hop the shit out of it, and like I like hops, but I don't want to eat like a bag of grass clippings. Some of these, like, it's literally like like you can taste the pollen almost. It's like eating flowers. This one's like not quite like that. It's good. I like it. It's very good on draft if you can find it. I don't know how common that is all around the country. It's quite tasty on a summer. I guess it's fall, but it's hot as shit. So it's nice and tasty on a hot afternoon, regardless of what time of year it may be. The next one we're going to talk about is captive audience equals guaranteed profit. So what this guy would do for his church, and not only for like his own interests, but would encourage his sub-churches to do the same thing. And again, it seems like it's hugely altruistic because he's like, I'm going to teach you how to start this little side business, and it's going to be hugely popular. You're going to make a bunch of money, and it's going to support your church. And oh, by the way, hey, with all that extra money, why don't you come buy some more books and CDs and things and trainings to give your people. They're going to love it. It's going to be great, right? That's another thing that is interesting about that concept of teaching your customers to be your affiliates, because then you're basically stuffing their pockets with someone else's money, and then you can be like, hey, come give me some of that. And it works, and everybody's happy about it. It sounds bad when you say it that way, but what he would do in his church is he would say, like, open a bookstore or open a publishing company or a coffee shop, right? But you run this church with all these members, so it's like a captive audience. So you're like, hey, support our church, and the money comes into the church, right? Like you're participating. If you're going to drink a coffee anyway, come to this coffee shop instead of Starbucks, and you can feel good about yourself because we're synergy. We're all together. We're in the same boat. But really what you're doing is you're leveraging your captive audience to monetize your private external business. So an example of how I've seen people use this is if you write a book and you publish it, like self-publish it on Amazon via Kindle and CreateSpace and stuff, and then you take your audience and you're like, go buy it for 99 cents and leave a badass review, and then I'll give you a cool free bonus. Drives up the number of sales right when you launch it. It hits the bestseller list. That exposes it to a ton more buyers who then jump in and buy it because it's the new hot thing and they got nothing better to do. Then all of a sudden your position as a bestseller is anchored, and it stays there, and it continues to sell and sell and sell. So that's why it's super valuable when you have a tight audience that you do what I recommend, and it's why the cult of copy even exists for my own work. Like, we talk about cool stuff and everybody has a good time, but the benefit for me is I know the people in there are, and not in a bad way, look at me, they're the nerds of copy, right? Like, they are the hardcore addicts who want to talk about it and read about it. There's like, you can't give them enough. That's the perfect audience for me to drop my products and services and training into, because that's my people, right? Like, I have that group that I can throw at any of these little side projects that are related to what we mutually care about, and I don't necessarily have to, like, put it out in the public marketplace the way a normal business might do. And that's what this guy was doing with these churches. He's like, don't do like a fundraiser, start a legit business, and then pack it with all your loyal churchgoers to kickstart it, and then eventually it becomes a successful business on its own, hopefully, just because it's packed all the time and people talk about it. So it can grow beyond that, but even then, like, I don't typically sell my own stuff outside of the cult of copy because I don't need to. Like, even just my captive, quote unquote, you guys can leave if you want to. Hope you don't want to. I try to make it cool, but my audience that's within my reach is more than enough to support what I feel I want to get back as a return on the effort that I put into creating products and putting them out there. So if you have an audience of your own around your own products, the idea for you is, again, you can tie this to that idea of turning your customers into your own affiliates, but more importantly, rather than doing that sort of helping them out thing with it specifically, the idea is you can start other little side avenues and throw traffic at it if it's related. For example, like, I run this Facebook group, there's lots of discussions because we're all talking to each other every day, little in-jokes pop out. We have like little concepts, little repeated things, little cool deals that little groups tend to have. I could use those things and put them on t-shirts and probably sell a bunch of t-shirts. T-shirts have nothing to do with marketing, but I could throw my audience at these shirt designs and pick up extra money just because. That's the way I want you to start thinking, is like, what other stuff that's sort of like this will people buy that my audience will dive into because it's quote unquote for them, even though it's not directly connected to that kind of thing. That's the way we want to expand that. Let's see, I can't remember if we got two more or one more. One more. You want to leverage this is going to sound devious. I've done it. It's not as bad as it sounds because I do have value to offer. But you want to leverage loyal members of your audience for favors and free labor if you can. Because why not? If you have something that you can offer them in return. So like I work with some copywriters and I get them to do work for me, not necessarily for free, but for cheap, or in return for publicity, or getting to take credit on the things that they help me with in front of the audience that I have, which again is an audience that would be interested in their work also, right? The way this preacher guy would do it is he would get free labor for his coffee shop or whatever, because he would have church people go volunteer to work for free. And they would be happy to do it because it's part of the mission that we all agreed to, that we want to make come true. So not only is he making a bunch of money from this private side business that's cash, that has nothing to do with the church, they maybe give a little portion of it back, but he's doing it with free labor from willing volunteers who are happy to do it. I'm not that evil, but I do every once in a while ask for favors from the group when I need a little bit of this or a little bit of that, and I try to compensate in ways that are not necessarily taking cash out of my pocket the way that I would have to if I didn't have this audience that is eager to help. Because again, my mission is to keep creating cool stuff for my audience that they like. So if they're in the audience and they like my stuff, they want me to keep making more, they're happy to take these little opportunities to participate and do little favors that'll create new cool things that'll make the audience grow, and so on and so forth. At least I think so. No one's ever complained about it. Everyone seems to be happy. Therefore, I think there's a way to do it nicely where everyone wins and no one feels like you're trying to scrape free labor out. I'm not like commanding anybody. I ask for volunteers and people are happy to help out, either just to be part of it or for the credit that'll come with it. It doesn't work 100% of the time. I mean, sometimes I get into situations where I would have actually just been better off hiring someone instead of, trying to get it done the cheap and easy cult leader way. But what's the point of running a cult if you can't ask people to do stuff for you every once in a while, right? That's the whole reason you would start a cult. You think I got all these titles in front of my name just for fun? Come on. But that's basically it. Those are the 6 factors that this guy sort of covered as things that this church was doing. Hopefully I explained them well so you can see how he was applying them to further his devious secret goal. But hopefully I also explained how you might be able to use them for your expert type info marketing business in a number of ways. And I know, again, these are all like techniques you may have heard of before. But I know for me anyway, even though I know some of these, I wasn't doing them because I didn't think of them in the way that this guy was forced to explain them, because these people don't hear the same marketing concepts over and over. So it was really a new and interesting twist on these sort of same techniques that I'd heard over and over by seeing them applied in a different environment. I learned a lot just by reading about it, and I wanted to share it with you guys as our first show back after our short beginning of fall hiatus while I get back used to doing my regular work routine with the wife going back to work and the baby being in daycare and stuff. So that's it for this week. I guess it was a little short. We got started late, but we finished right on time. I'm going to go through the closing spiel. I see Zane is there. If you're keeping an eye on the questions, comments, and things, we'll jump into those in just a second.
Cool.
But to close the show out, again, this was episode 23 of the Cult of Copy show. You can join our discussion group, 10,000 members strong, at cultofcopy.com. You can subscribe to this show and watch any of our previous 23 episodes at youtube.com/cultofcopy. I'm your host, the Reverend Dr. Sir Colin D. Terrio. Our director, tardy because it's his birthday and his internet sucks, as always, is Zane Miller of G-Tron Marketing on Google+, if you want to get in touch with him there. And if you want to join us for live episodes, we do that typically Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, right on that YouTube channel I mentioned before. If you subscribe to that channel, it'll let you know when we set up new Hangouts ahead of time, and then that way you can make sure to show up and participate with us and ask questions or leave comments, like hopefully the ones we're going to see right now. How's it look, Zane? Do we have anything?
Yeah, we got a few.
Super.
Being that I'm not the host, I can't really show the questions, but
that's cool. You want to stick them in that comment box, and then I can read them?
Yeah, sure. So
yeah, let's do it that way. I'll read them out loud.
So here's one from Sean. So let me I totally agree with him, by the way.
All right, Sean says, yeah, you should totally smack a JVZoo payment thing on a few of your courses, man, just saying. You know, it's one of those things, for a long time, affiliate marketing, and maybe I'm showing my age and how long I've sort of been kind of connected to internet marketing in general. For a long time, that idea of affiliate marketing was like you had to have a hot product and a hot name and a brand for people to even find you to join your affiliate program. Like, it was a growth goal to get to the point where it was worth other people even trying to become an affiliate of yours. And then we got into the launch model, where you got a bunch of smaller level affiliates that are feeding off this repeated launch frenzy, where someone's launching a new product in your field week after week after week, where you would line up all these affiliates ahead of time, and you would set your products to where they would get 100% commission, and the only way you would make any money is selling something on the back end, which is a post-sale sale, or when they would promote your product to their list, or no, when you would promote their products to your list. So you would only make money selling other people's stuff, and you would only grow your list if other people sold your stuff. And that always seemed like okay as a gimmicky thing for a while, but I never got too heavily into it. And what I always recommend to people is, if the whole affiliate thing is slowing you down and causing you to not release cool things that people would want to buy from you, ignore it. And the right time to open an affiliate program is when people start asking you to be your affiliate. They start promoting it to you. They start pitching you on the idea, hey, I would love to sell your stuff if you had an affiliate program. That's the time to do it. I'm like a year and a half late in following my own advice there. But really, don't worry about affiliates until you have something so awesome that people are noticing and asking you to promote it. Because normally when that happens, the people asking you to promote it are like a big deal, and not these little, not that there's anything wrong with it, but little nickel and dime affiliates that don't care necessarily about the quality behind your brand, because they make their money in numbers and always promoting the hot new thing that happens to be out right then. Again, nothing wrong with that business model, but if you're trying to build these networking, high quality joint venture partners versus just having a big pool of affiliates, maybe that's a better way to go. And then once you get to that point, then you're like, hey, anybody can be an affiliate too. But why do the work when you don't have to yet? Let's see. Contractor Coach says, I wear nerd with pride. Yeah, speaking of that, you guys like my new glasses? I've never worn glasses before, but I felt like my eyesight felt weird, and it turns out it's because my right eye is now less good than my left eye, and I've never needed glasses before. So it turns out the brightness that I was getting out of this eye is just because they're different focuses. So if I put the glasses on, it goes back to normal.
Very, very hipster.
Yeah. Well,
it's our cult hipster.
Well, it's one of those things. They didn't have the Jim Jones ones with the gradient. So, um,
I guess you're just waiting for that. They're on back order,
right.
right?
No, it's one of those things where my life keeps conspiring to make me look more and more like a hipster accidentally. Because like I wasn't like, ooh, growing a beard is cool. I'm gonna get a beard, and it's not like, oh, I'm gonna get those chunky glasses because like I'm old enough to where I actually enjoy these things ironically, not ironically, like genuinely instead of ironically. So like when I wear these like hipster nostalgia T-shirts, like Godzilla King of Monsters and all, like I remember that I used to buy that comic book. Like it's not like I'm like, oh, old stuff is cool, retro. Like no, like I actually used to buy those comic books. Um, but yeah, I frequently get mistaken for someone younger because of my baby face, despite the giant beard and the fact that I dress like a child, probably. Um, but yeah, having glasses, it's fun getting used to it. It's weird looking in the mirror because not only can I see better, but also I'm not used to seeing myself with glasses. Uh, but you know, getting old, man, getting old, it happens. It's the first thing to go. Plus, I stare at computer screens all day. That's probably not good. But anyway, enough about me. Yeah, man, nerd pride. Like somebody told me today in a conversation on Facebook, it was funny. It wasn't necessarily about being nerdy, but it was like, there's just some stuff you don't talk about because like people get upset. And I'm like, I would rather just be genuine about it. And if people can't handle that, you just block them or whatever, right? Um, I think like being nerdy and being authentic to yourself is, we could do a whole other show on that. But nerdiness is one aspect of it. And I think with the explosion of choices for everyone about everything that the internet makes available, being yourself and creating a very specific flavor for whatever it is that you want to share with people is going to be more and more important for creating a sustainable living than trying to cast a wide net to catch everybody. Because basically, there's already people doing a better job of that, um, being the big provider, right? Like, you don't want to try to compete with Amazon, although you might make a niche store and Amazon might sell the same thing as you. You would want to make your niche store more about attitude and philosophy and benefits and bonuses and cool little things, make people feel like they belong. So even though they might be able to get a better price from Amazon, uh, it's still cooler to buy from you because you're one of them, whereas Amazon is a giant faceless corporation for everyone. Rebecca Quinn says, not just nerds, captive nerds. Yeah, that, yeah, captive nerds. I like that. That'll be my next group that I start. Um, that's it. I think that's all the comments and questions this week.
Yeah, contractor coach said something about like well explained, but I'm not quite sure. Like, there was a
But,
lot of things you well explained. So
oh, okay, yeah. No, we try and explain things here. That's why we do a whole show for an hour every week. Just blah 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 blah. Again, somebody just told me the other day, they're like, I wish your show was shorter. And I'm like, well, you must not like it very much then. I'll try and do better. But then again, like I like listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and that thing's like 3 hours long, and I feel like hour two is just when it starts getting good. So not that I'm going to start doing way longer shows, but I feel like again, same thing with the cult. Like I make the show the way that it is because I want the people that love the topic and can't get enough of it. I want the people that are going to listen to an hour every week and be like, man, I wish that dude did like 3 days a week. I would listen to it all.
I'm one of them.
Sean Mitchell says, I could see him building some wacky t-shirts for the group that just seemed to fit. I planned on it. In fact, that's one of the things. I'm not going to call out any names or anything because I don't want to embarrass anybody. It's part of it's me because I don't really crack the whip very well. But we had someone who was going to make a t-shirt design for me for the first 10,000 members of the Cult of Copy. And since we're at, I think, 12,000 members now, it's not very appropriate anymore. But we are gonna, I'm gonna try and make that, update it, to be for the first 13,000 members, and then we'll shut it off after that. So that kind of makes sense because we do things in the cult for the number 13 as one of our little special inside jokes. So that design looks badass, and we'll try and kick that off real soon. But with that, we can call it a day. Say that's the end of the show, and we'll see you guys next week. I do want to point out that this being the beginning of October, I don't have a hard date on it because it was one of those things I kind of just said, like, fuck it, I'm going to do it now. But we are roughly right on top of the 2-year anniversary of the Cult of Copy itself. So thank you to everyone who is watching this now live and will watch it at some point in the future. Again, because like you guys do that patronage relationship with me for our mutual interests. I am very, very grateful that I have the living that I'm able to have and support my family the way that I do, literally doing nothing but talking about a subject which I deeply, deeply love and sharing it with people who also deeply love it. So thank you so much for that. It's been an awesome 2 years, and here's to many, many more. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week. I was waiting for the applause, but Zane's not the director, so he can't hit the button. I got to turn it off myself. Bye, everybody. See you later.